Chosen one. They keep asking, who's helping you? The answer is nearer than they think. What if the reason people keep accusing you of having secret help is because they can't accept that something greater is simply working through you directly? What if every time someone asks, almost suspiciously, who's really behind this, the true answer is standing so close to you that you've stopped noticing it's even there? I want you to actually pause on this question before you scroll past it, because you've probably felt this exact confusion before. Succeeding at something, handling a situation with a clarity you can't fully explain, and watching people search for an outside explanation instead of simply accepting that the help was already with you the entire time. Are you ready to finally understand where that help has actually been coming from? You've felt it, haven't you? The strange disbelief people show when something in your life goes unexpectedly well. Instead of simple congratulations, you get questions. Who's really behind this? Who's pulling strings for you? Who's giving you an advantage nobody else seems to have access to? And underneath those questions is an assumption you can't quite shake off, that you couldn't possibly have done this on your own, that there must be someone or something else responsible. That assumption stings, especially when you know how much you personally poured into getting here. But there's also a quieter truth buried underneath the sting, because in a way, they're not entirely wrong. You haven't been doing this completely alone. You just haven't recognized who's actually been helping you. Have people ever questioned your success as if it couldn't possibly be genuinely yours, without realizing how close the real source of your help actually is? Why you've been looking past the help that's already there. Here's something worth examining honestly. When people ask who's helping you, they usually expect an answer involving another person, a mentor, a connection, someone pulling strings behind the scenes. But what if the actual help isn't a person at all? What if it's a presence so consistently woven into your life that it's become invisible to you? The way you stop noticing the sound of your own breathing, simply because it's always there. Sometimes the most powerful help is the kind so constant, so near, that it disappears into the background of your everyday awareness. Have you overlooked a source of help simply because it's been present so consistently that it's become invisible to you? The moment you handled something beyond your own capacity, think back to a specific moment where you did something that genuinely surprised even you. A decision made under pressure that turned out exactly right. A solution that arrived seemingly out of nowhere. A strength you didn't know you had that showed up exactly when you needed it most. In that moment, did it feel entirely like your own effort, or did some part of you sense something larger moving through the situation alongside you? That sensation, easy to dismiss in the moment, is worth returning to and examining more closely now. Can you recall a specific moment where your own capability seemed to expand beyond what you thought you were actually capable of? If this is landing somewhere real in you, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because part 2 goes even deeper into recognizing exactly where this help has been coming from. Why God often works through the ordinary, not just the dramatic. Here's something worth understanding clearly. Divine help doesn't always arrive as a booming voice or a miraculous, undeniable sign. Often, it arrives disguised as an ordinary thought that turns out to be exactly right, a quiet nudge to make a decision that later proves essential, a sudden calm in a moment that should have been chaotic. That subtlety is precisely why so many people miss it. They're looking for something dramatic, when the actual help has been arriving quietly, consistently, embedded in the ordinary fabric of everyday moments. Have you dismissed quiet, ordinary moments as coincidence, when they might have actually been exactly the help you were looking for? Why your strength in crisis isn't fully your own. Think honestly about the hardest seasons you've survived, moments that should have broken you, situations that logically should have overwhelmed you completely, and yet, somehow, you found the strength to keep moving forward, to make the next right decision, to hold yourself together when everything around you was falling apart. That strength, in hindsight, often feels larger than what you believe you're personally capable of producing on your own. That gap between what you expected from yourself and what you actually delivered in crisis is worth examining closely, because it might be exactly where this help has been showing up most clearly. Has your own strength during crisis ever surprised you, as if something beyond your usual capacity was carrying you through it? Why people accuse you of having help because they sense something real? Here's something worth considering seriously. When people repeatedly ask who's helping you, insisting your success or capability doesn't add up on its own. They're actually sensing something real, even if they're misattributing where it comes from. Their suspicion is, in a strange way, evidence. They can feel that something larger is at work in your life, even if they assume it must be another person, rather than a presence they can't fully name or explain. Their confusion isn't an insult. It's an unintentional confirmation that something genuinely significant is happening in your life. Could the suspicion people express about your success actually be an unintentional confirmation that something real and significant is present in your life? If this reframe is landing somewhere real, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because Part 2 dives deeper into recognizing this presence clearly in your everyday life. Why this presence has been closer during your loneliest moments. Think about the specific seasons where you felt most alone, nights where nobody understood what you were going through, situations where you had no one physically present to lean on. And yet, somehow you made it through. Somehow, you found a way to keep going even without visible human support in that exact moment. That survival wasn't accidental. The help you needed most was likely closest precisely during the moments when you felt most isolated from everyone else. Has your loneliest season ever produced an unexpected strength that felt like more than just personal willpower alone? Why you don't need proof to trust this presence. Fully, here's something worth releasing completely. The need for undeniable, visible proof before you're willing to fully trust that this help is real. Some of the most meaningful presence in your life operates quietly, without dramatic confirmation, requiring instead a willingness to trust based on the consistent pattern of your own experience, rather than demanding hard evidence first. Waiting for irrefutable proof before believing might mean missing the ongoing help that's already been surrounding you the entire time. Are you waiting for undeniable proof before fully trusting a presence that's already shown up consistently throughout your life? Truth for today. The help people keep insisting you must have received from somewhere else has actually been present the entire time, closer than anyone accusing you has realized. It's shown up in your unexplained strength during crisis, your quiet clarity in difficult decisions, your survival through seasons that should have overwhelmed you completely. That help was never a secret mentor or hidden connection. It's been a presence far nearer than anyone questioning you has ever imagined. If you finally recognized and fully trusted this presence as the true source of your capability, how differently would you carry yourself moving forward? You've spent so much time being questioned about where your capability actually comes from, and the honest answer is closer than anyone accusing you has considered. This isn't about secret human help or hidden connections. It's about a presence that's been with you consistently, quietly, showing up in your strength, your clarity, and your survival through seasons that should have broken you. Goes deeper into exactly how to recognize this presence clearly and what it means for everything still ahead of you. If this message reached something real in you tonight, don't let it end here. Subscribe now, because part 2 continues exactly where this left off. The help was never far away. It's time you finally recognized it. We talked about the presence that's been closer than you realized, showing up in your unexplained strength, your quiet clarity, your survival through seasons that should have broken you. So today, let's go further. If this presence has truly been this close the whole time, why does it still feel so hard to fully recognize? Why do doubt and logic keep pulling you back toward believing it was all just you, alone, figuring things out through sheer willpower? Are you ready to finally clear away what's been blocking you from seeing this clearly? Here's what makes this so difficult to fully accept. You've been taught, directly or indirectly, that real strength means self-sufficiency, that needing help, especially invisible help you can't fully prove, somehow makes your accomplishments less impressive, less legitimately yours. So even when something in you senses this presence clearly, a defensive part of your mind pushes back, insisting on taking full credit alone, afraid that acknowledging help somehow diminishes what you've built. Have you resisted acknowledging this presence because some part of you feared it would make your accomplishments feel less genuinely your own? Why acknowledging help doesn't diminish your own effort? Here's something worth understanding clearly. Recognizing a greater presence working alongside you doesn't erase or diminish your own effort, your own choices, your own resilience. Both things can be true simultaneously. You worked hard, you made difficult decisions, you pushed through real adversity, and something greater was also present, guiding, strengthening, clarifying throughout that entire process. Acknowledging one doesn't cancel out the other. They exist together, woven into the same story. Can you hold both truths simultaneously? Your own genuine effort and a greater presence working alongside it, without needing to choose one over the other. Why doubt shows up loudest right when recognition is lost. Here's a pattern worth noticing. Doubt often intensifies right at the exact moment you're closest to fully recognizing something significant. It's almost as if resistance senses the shift about to happen and pushes back harder, trying to convince you that what you're sensing isn't real, that it's simply wishful thinking, coincidence, or emotional exaggeration. That intensified doubt isn't proof you're wrong. It's often proof you're standing right at the edge of a real breakthrough in understanding. Has your doubt about this presence felt especially loud recently, right as you've started sensing it more clearly than before? If this is landing somewhere real, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because part 3 goes even deeper into moving past this doubt completely. Why this presence often speaks through your own thoughts. Here's something worth considering carefully. One of the reasons this presence is so hard to fully recognize is that it rarely announces itself as separate from you. It often arrives through your own thoughts. A sudden clarity, an unexpected solution, a gentle redirection that feels like your own idea, but arrives with a precision that surprises even you. Because it moves through your own mind, rather than announcing itself externally. It's easy to mistake it entirely for your own thinking, missing the guidance embedded quietly within it. Have you ever had a thought arrive so precisely, so helpfully, that it felt like more than simply your own mind working alone? Why the people closest to you sometimes sensed this before you. Do think about anyone in your life who's ever said something like, "There's just something about you," or "I don't know how you always land on your feet," without being able to fully explain what they meant. Sometimes the people around you sense this presence in your life before you're able to name it yourself, picking up on a consistency, a protection, a guidance they can feel, even if they can't articulate exactly where it comes from. Has someone close to you ever commented on something in your life that they couldn't quite explain, but that hinted at a presence bigger than pure luck or coincidence? Why this presence shows up most clearly in Hind sight. Here's something worth understanding about how this kind of guidance usually works. It's often far easier to recognize clearly by looking backward than by trying to identify it in the exact moment it's happening. Looking back at a season of your life, you can often trace a thread of protection, guidance, and provision that felt completely disconnected while you were living through it. But that reveals itself as remarkably intentional once you have enough distance to see the full pattern. When you look back honestly at your life, can you trace a thread of guidance and protection that felt random in the moment but looks intentional now? If this reflection is landing somewhere real, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because part 3 goes deeper into recognizing this pattern even while you're still living through it. Why you don't have to earn this presence to deserve its help. Here's something important worth releasing: the belief that you have to be perfect, deserving, or fully figured out before this kind of help is available to you. This presence has likely been with you through your worst mistakes, your most flawed decisions, your most uncertain seasons, not because you earned it through perfection, but because it was never conditional on your performance in the first place. You don't need to clean yourself up first. The help has already been present, exactly as you are. Have you held back from fully trusting this presence because you felt you first needed to become more deserving of it? Why recognizing this presence changes how what's next. There's something worth considering as you move forward. Once you fully accept that you've never actually been carrying everything entirely alone, the weight of whatever comes next in your life shifts significantly. You're no longer facing uncertainty purely through your own limited strength and resources. You're facing it alongside a presence that's already proven itself consistently throughout your entire story, even during the seasons you couldn't clearly see it working. How would fully trusting this presence change the way you approach whatever challenge is currently in front of you? Truth for today: the doubt you've felt about fully recognizing this presence doesn't mean it isn't real. It often means you're standing closer to genuine recognition than ever before. This presence speaks through your own thoughts, reveals itself clearly in hindsight, and has never required you to be perfect or fully deserving before offering its help. It's been with you the entire time, closer than the doubt has allowed you to fully believe. If you release the doubt completely and simply trusted what you've already sensed all along, how much lighter would you feel moving into whatever comes next? You've learned something today that clears away the resistance blocking full recognition. That acknowledging this presence doesn't diminish your own effort. That doubt often intensifies right before real breakthrough, and that this guidance has likely been speaking through your own thoughts far more often than you realized. Stay open. Stay attentive. The recognition you're circling around is closer than the doubt wants you to believe. There's more ahead. Part 3 goes into fully recognizing this presence in real time, not just in hindsight, and trusting it completely for whatever comes next. If this message is helping you see more clearly, subscribe now, because Part 3 continues exactly where this left off. The presence was never far. You're just finally starting to see it. Why this presence has been goading your career and money more than you realized. What if the job you almost didn't take, the opportunity you almost talked yourself out of, the financial decision that made no logical sense at the time but somehow worked out exactly right? What if none of that was actually your own strategic brilliance alone? What if this presence has been quietly shaping your career path and your finances the entire time, showing up in closed doors that frustrated you and open doors that surprised you, and you've simply never connected the pattern until right now? Think about your current job, your current financial situation, the exact sequence of events that brought you to where you're standing professionally today. Was all of that really just your own careful planning, or was something else quietly steering the wheel alongside you? You've probably spent years believing your career was something you had to build entirely through your own effort, your own strategy, your own relentless hustle. Every job application, every interview, every financial decision felt like it rested entirely on your shoulders, and when things didn't go your way, you blamed yourself completely, wondering what you did wrong, what you should have done differently, why the door you wanted so badly simply wouldn't open, no matter how hard you pushed against it. That exhausting sense of sole responsibility, carrying your entire professional and financial future purely through personal willpower, has probably worn you down more than you've admitted, even to yourself. Have you been carrying the weight of your entire career and financial future as if it rested purely on your own shoulders, with no help at all? Why? The job that rebet, you might have been protection, not fascia. Here's something worth reconsidering honestly. Think about a job you desperately wanted but didn't get, a position you were convinced would have changed everything for you, only to watch someone else get chosen instead. In the moment, that rejection probably felt devastating, maybe even humiliating. But look at where that rejection actually led you. Did it eventually push you towards something better suited to you? Something you wouldn't have found if that first door had simply opened the way you wanted. Can you think of a career rejection that, looking back now, actually redirected you towards something better than what you originally wanted? Why some financial decisions that made no logical sense worked out anyway? Here's something worth examining with real honesty. Has there been a financial decision in your life that, purely on paper, looked risky or even irresponsible, but that you felt strangely compelled to make anyway, and it ended up working out in a way that logic alone couldn't have predicted? That specific combination, illogical on paper, but deeply right in practice, often points to guidance beyond simple financial strategy. Pure logic doesn't always account for timing, circumstances, and factors invisible to spreadsheets and careful planning alone. Has a financial decision that seemed illogical on paper ever worked out in a way that surprised even you? If this is landing somewhere real in you, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because there's more waiting for whenever your next career decision needs this kind of clarity. Why unexpected connections often appear right. When you need them, professionally, think about the specific people who've appeared at exactly the right professional moment. A mentor who reached out unexpectedly, a colleague who mentioned an opportunity you never would have found on your own, a chance conversation at an event you almost didn't attend that led directly to something significant in your career. These connections often arrive with a timing too precise to be pure coincidence, appearing exactly when you needed direction the most, and disappearing from active involvement once their specific purpose had been fulfilled. Can you remember a professional connection that appeared at exactly the right moment, seemingly out of nowhere, that ended up mattering significantly to your career? Why? The skills you developed without realizing their future value matter now. Here's something worth reflecting on carefully. Think about a skill you developed years ago, almost by accident, without any clear plan for how it would eventually matter. That turned out to be exactly what your current career actually needed. Sometimes you're being equipped for a future role long before you understand what that role will actually be. Developing capability in seasons that seemed unrelated to where you'd eventually land, in ways that only make sense looking backward with the full picture in view. What skill did you develop years ago, seemingly unrelated to your current path, that turned out to be exactly what you needed later? Why financial provision sometimes arrives in ways you can't fully explain. Here's something worth considering honestly. Has there been a season where you genuinely didn't know how you were going to cover something financially, and somehow, through a sequence of events you can't fully explain, it worked out exactly when you needed it to? Not always dramatically, sometimes quietly, through an unexpected opportunity, a bill that turned out smaller than expected, a resource that appeared right when the need was most urgent. That kind of provision, arriving precisely at the point of genuine need, is worth examining, rather than simply attributing to luck. Has financial provision ever arrived in your life in a way you genuinely can't fully explain through logic alone? If this reflection is meaningful to you, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because there's more waiting for whenever your next chapter needs this kind of trust. Why your career path makes more sense looking backward than it did moving forward. Here's something worth mapping out honestly. Trace your entire career path from the very beginning to where you stand right now. Individually, many of those steps probably felt confusing, disconnected, even like mistakes at the time. But looking at the entire sequence together, does it actually form a coherent, meaningful pattern? One that seems intentional rather than randomly assembled? That kind of retrospective clarity often reveals guidance that wasn't visible while you were still living through each individual step. When you trace your entire career path from the beginning until now, does it form a coherent pattern that looks intentional rather than random? Why you don't have to carry your future career decisions entirely alone. Here's something freeing worth releasing right now. The exhausting belief that every future career or financial decision rests purely on your own shoulders, requiring you to have it all figured out through sheer willpower and strategy alone. The same presence that guided you through rejections that redirected you, connections that appeared precisely when needed, and provision that arrived beyond logical explanation, remains fully available for whatever professional decisions still lie ahead of you. Can you release the exhausting belief that your future career decisions rest purely on your own shoulders, trusting instead in continued guidance? The final truth for today: your career, your finances, the entire winding path that brought you to exactly where you're standing professionally today was never something you navigated purely alone. The doors that closed painfully redirected you toward better ones. The people who appeared precisely when needed weren't coincidental. The provision that arrived beyond logical explanation was real help, quietly present the entire time, even when you believed you were carrying the full weight of your future entirely by yourself. If you fully trusted this presence with your career and financial future going forward, how much lighter would the pressure of every future decision actually feel? You've learned something today that extends this entire journey into one of the most practical, everyday parts of your life. That your career and your finances were never navigated purely through your own strategy alone. This presence has been quietly guiding doors, connections, and provision throughout your entire professional story. Stay trusting. Stay attentive to how this guidance continues showing up in your everyday decisions. This is almost the end of this journey. Part 10 brings everything full circle, closing this entire series with the final truth you need to carry forward into everything still ahead of you. If this message reached something real in you today, subscribe now, because Part 10 is coming, and it completes everything we've walked through together. You were never navigating your career alone. Now you finally understand why. What if everything you've walked through across this entire journey, the presence you couldn't name, the strangers who appeared and disappeared, the silence that wasn't abandonment, the career and money that somehow worked out beyond logic, what if all of it was leading you to one final truth you were never quite ready to fully accept until this exact moment? What if the answer to who's helping you was never meant to just satisfy your curiosity, but to completely transform how you walk through the rest of your life? You've come a long way since the first time someone looked at your life and asked, almost suspiciously, who's really behind all this? Let's finish this journey together, completely. You started this series carrying confusion, maybe even a little defensiveness. People kept questioning your success, your resilience, your capability, as if you couldn't possibly have gotten here through your own effort alone. And in a strange way they were right, though not in the way they meant it. You haven't been doing this alone. But acknowledging that took an entire journey of unpacking doubt, resistance, old beliefs about self-sufficiency, and fear of what full acceptance might actually require of you. Look at where you started this journey, and look at where you're standing right now. Has something actually shifted in you, even if the external questions from other people haven't fully stopped? That internal shift, however complete or incomplete it still feels, is the entire point of everything we've walked through together. Why you no longer need to defend your own story. Here's the truth this entire journey has been building toward. You no longer need to defend, justify, or fully explain your own capability to people who insist on searching for a hidden explanation behind your life. You know now, clearly, fully, where your strength has actually come from. That knowledge doesn't require external validation to be true. It simply requires your own full acceptance, which you've been building steadily across every single part of this journey. Can you feel that shift settling into you completely? The recognition that you no longer need anyone else's approval to know exactly where your help has come from. Why every piece of this journey was building toward this exact moment. Look back now, across everything we've uncovered together. The presence too consistent to be coincidence. The doubt that intensified right before real recognition. The specific sign you'd almost dismissed as chance. The silence that wasn't abandonment, but protection and timing, far bigger than a quick answer could have honored. The strangers who arrived precisely, disguised as ordinary people, delivering exactly what you needed before disappearing. The realization that you're meant to become that same presence for someone else. The difficult relationship where you were never actually alone. The career and financial path that makes far more sense looking backward than it ever did moving forward. Each piece, individually, might have felt like a separate lesson. But together, they form something much larger. A complete picture of a presence that has been threaded through literally every single part of your life. Without exception, without gaps, without a single season where you were actually as alone as it sometimes felt. Can you see now how every part of this journey was actually building toward this same complete picture? If this recognition is landing somewhere real in you, that's exactly why this journey exists. Subscribe now, because there's always another message waiting for whenever your next season needs this kind of clarity. Why this understanding changes. How you face every future question. Think about the next time someone questions your success, your resilience, your ability to handle something that would overwhelm most people. You won't need to feel defensive or confused anymore. You'll simply know, with quiet, settled confidence, exactly where that capability has always come from. That knowledge becomes a permanent foundation now, something you carry into every future challenge, every future doubt, every future moment where someone else insists your life doesn't add up without some hidden explanation. If someone asked you today, one final time, who's really helping you, how would you answer now, compared to how you might have answered before this entire journey began? Why gratitude is the only appropriate response to what you now understand. Here's something worth sitting with deeply as this journey closes. Understanding all of this fully changes the appropriate response from confusion to gratitude. Gratitude for the strength that showed up when you needed it most. Gratitude for the strangers who arrived precisely and disappeared just as quickly. Gratitude for the silence that protected you from answers you weren't ready to receive. Gratitude for the career and financial path that unfolded with a wisdom your own planning alone could never have produced. That gratitude doesn't diminish your own effort. It simply completes the picture, honoring both your hard work and the presence that walked alongside it the entire time. What are you most deeply grateful for? Now that you fully understand how present this help has actually been throughout your entire story, why this journey was never just about you. Here's something worth carrying forward as this series closes. Everything you've learned across these 10 parts wasn't only meant to transform your own understanding. It was meant to equip you to become exactly the presence for someone else that you've spent this journey learning to recognize in your own life. Somewhere, someone is currently confused, questioning their own resilience, wondering if they're truly alone in whatever they're facing. Your understanding, fully embraced, becomes something you can now offer them directly through your own words, your own presence, your own willingness to show up exactly when they need it. Who in your life is ready to hear everything you've learned across this entire journey, waiting for exactly the clarity you now carry? If this calling is settling into you right now, that's exactly why this series was written. Subscribe now, because whatever comes next in your life, this channel will be here to walk through it with you. Why this presence remans with you for everything. Still ahead as this specific journey comes to its close, it's worth remembering clearly. This was never a limited time presence. active only through the specific seasons we've discussed across these 10 parts. It remains fully available for whatever comes next in your life. The next difficult relationship, the next uncertain career decision, the next season of unexplained silence, the next stranger who might appear precisely when you need them most. Nothing about what's ahead requires you to face it with any less support than everything you've already walked through. Can you trust completely that this same presence remains fully available for absolutely everything still ahead of you, exactly as consistently as it's shown up throughout everything already behind you? Why you are not the same person who started this journey. You are not the same person who first heard someone question with genuine suspicion who's really helping you. That person carried defensiveness, confusion, maybe even a little shame about needing help at all. The person standing here now, having walked through every part of this journey, carries something entirely different: quiet confidence, deep gratitude, full recognition of a presence that has been near, consistent, and completely real throughout every single chapter of your story. That transformation, built slowly across 10 parts, is not something you'll lose once this series ends. It's become part of who you are now, permanently, ready to shape every future season of your life. Can you feel how different you are now, compared to the person who first started questioning where all of this capability and resilience had actually come from? The final truth: everything you've walked through across this entire 10-part journey. The presence too consistent to be coincidence. The doubt that intensified right before recognition. The specific sign you'd almost dismissed. The silence that was protection rather than abandonment. The strangers who arrived precisely and disappeared just as quickly. The calling to become that same presence for someone else. The difficult relationship you never actually faced alone. The career and financial path guided by something beyond pure logic. All of it was leading you here, to this exact moment, standing fully aware, fully grateful, fully at peace with an answer that was always nearer than anyone questioning you ever imagined. You didn't need a hidden mentor. You didn't need a secret connection. You didn't need proof beyond what your own life has already shown you, consistently, across every single chapter. You simply needed to finally, fully recognize what was already there, closer than you ever realized, walking beside you through every part of your story. If everything you've walked through in this journey was simply preparing you to answer, with complete confidence, exactly who's been helping you all along, are you finally ready to carry that answer forward, fully, for the rest of your life? Series finale. You've walked through this entire 10-part journey. From the uncomfortable question of who's really helping you, through the strangers, the silence, the signs, the difficult relationships, the career and financial path guided beyond logic, all the way to this final moment, standing here, completely transformed by everything this journey required you to understand. You were never alone. Not once. Not in your loneliest silence, not in your hardest relationship, not in your most uncertain career decision, not in a single moment across your entire life. The presence people kept insisting must exist somewhere else has been nearer than anyone accusing you ever imagined, nearer than your own doubt allowed you to believe for far too long. If this entire series meant something real to you, don't let it end here. Subscribe now, because there's always another message waiting for exactly the moment you need it most. And this channel isn't finished showing up for you yet. This chapter is closed. The answer was always nearer than they thought. And now, finally completely, you know it too.